It's Romania Black, and we are on episode 2, technically episode 26, of the Apothecary Diaries. How has it been a week? Has it been a week? It's been a week. Wow, it has been a week. I will be honest with y'all. I've not been as active on Discord this last week because it has been the first full week back of school since we had a giant ice storm and snowstorm here where I live, and so things have been crazy. But I have had in the back of my mind all week, I cannot wait to see the next episode of the Apothecary Diaries. And here we are. So I don't have any comments. I have been answering comments on Discord. They've been great. And I've been answering, not on Discord, on Patreon. And so thank you all so much for the Patreon comments. I'm excited for YouTube comments to start coming in for episode 25. That's really exciting. But yeah, I am loving the new season so far. The first episode coming back was hilarious. We have a calico cat now. Jinshi and Mau Mau are going to raise it together. Also, I will say, Anime Annie did say on the Patreon comments, we were kind of both simping for Gaoshun and how he's basically a perfect husbando, giving all of the daddy energy. Look, Gaoshun's 37, I'm 36. Is his wife down for sharing? Because if she is, I may have to go get in a time machine and also an anime, because are there Gaoshun fan arts? Look, I'm not trying to be vulgar. I'm not trying to go down a gutter mine here, but are there fan fiction for Gaoshun that's safe? Discord, if you want to share some very safe for Romania to read, but doesn't have to be safe for work, fan fiction surrounding Gaoshun, you just send it my way. Oh, I'm so excited. I've waited all day to see this episode, but luckily, fellow patron Ed has been helping me out. So because my internet is still down, I haven't been able to get on the internet to stream the new episode. So Ed, who is a fellow patron, former philanthropy tier member, has been very, very, very kind and got me the episode to watch today. And I finally got it downloaded this evening to watch, and I'm so excited. So we're not going to waste any time because I don't have any comments to talk about yet since we're just getting started. But I want to give a shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to not only thank them for support, but also to thank you all on Patreon in general. And for those of you on YouTube that are subscribing and commenting and supporting, a special thank you because it really, really means a lot to me. So from the philanthropy tier, thank you to Anime Annie, to Alex Cornejo, to Bryant Reed, to Be Happy, who is our moderator for the Apothecary Diaries the second season as well. In addition to Dana, Damage3245, Danny Don Mai, Devorin, Destiny Marie, Danger Zone, Ichu, Eric, Visho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Liam Poles, Lyndon, as well as Matthew Palfiniere, Murphew, Nago, Nicholas, as well as Sunspots, Shimoyama, Trails, Translucent Men, and Starman AA. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. It feels weird. It feels weird not having comments to really talk about or a book to have read, but honestly, trying to keep up with the internet situation has made it to where I haven't had a lot of time to read a book anyway, and school's starting back up, so I'm going to be grading papers already, so maybe for the best. But I might be researching and seeing if there's something I can find to research and read as we go. If people have suggestions that might be important to read along with this book, feel free to comment down below too. I can't guarantee I'll read all the suggestions, but it is good to sometimes have a reference or two, so... With that being said, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 26, episode 2 of season 2 of the Apothecary Diaries. Let's see this awesome OP, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. Well... The plot thickens. I'm very curious. I didn't bring my board Kun out for this episode because it felt very much like a setup episode for the first part of this season. And I'm trying to think, going back to the very beginning of season 1, it felt kind of similar, except now we don't have to set up Mau Mau and Loman and their relationship and Jinshi. We kind of are just starting with the ball rolling. But I went back to the OP to start at 1 minute and 15 seconds. That's when the hands all open up, and there are there's 4, 5, 6, there's 10 different items, which I believe are all connected to the first core of this season. And so, because obviously we didn't have an item in episode 1, In this episode, we do have an item that's in the hands, and it is at the bottom row at 1 minute and 15 seconds. There is the red bow, which is the bow that Xiaolan gets from Mao Mao at the caravan at the festival. So what's very interesting is that, honestly, because I was looking through this episode, I was like, where are items that would tie? I kept thinking that one of the items in the hands was going to be the little jasmine tea ball. No, it's the bow. So a lot of these items may be very abstract when it comes to the actual episode. The only one that we know for sure is Jinshi's hair pin. That's the only one we've seen in the past. And maybe if that yellow thing isn't gold, but like a Bezor or something, if it's the actual Bezor, we'll see. We'll see. But there's a letter, a ribbon, there's some flowers, there's a mushroom, a lunar moth, there's a frog, there's what looks like a rock or a stone, and then so we have the pink bow in the middle. Knock that one out, and that's for this episode. Also, they're all out of order. So I thought going into this, I'm like, oh, we're going to do one per episode. No, they're all out of order. So of course they are. They're not going to give us too many hints, right? I was really surprised that we didn't see the two blondes this episode. I was convinced we were going to find out what those two blondes were doing. Nope. And it doesn't seem, I want to check basement, that they didn't come with the original caravan. Did they just pass through and we didn't get to see them? Or did they drop stuff off? Or we're going to have to see. We're going to go through this episode and see what we see. The caravan has more merchants and goods than before. So I probably should have brought out Whiteboard Coon, but it's fine. So basically, there's a lot being set up in this episode. And the first thing to note is that there are more goods traveling in and out than normal with the caravan. The caravan seems like a once every couple years sort of thing that comes in, or once every year, a yearly thing. Maybe Mao Mao missed it the first time, just barely around. So that's really interesting to me, because obviously Jingli is like a year or two old now, so it seems like a yearly thing at least. But okay. So that in itself is troubling, because the bigger something is, the more likely an item can slip through without being detected. Because if you have an overwhelming amount of goods, then there's a high chance that something is going to sneak through. And obviously they're monitoring it, but this is where it gets a little bit complicated, because they don't want everybody to know that Gyokyo is pregnant. So you can't just be like, hey, monitor all the goods to make sure that a pregnant woman wouldn't be harmed by them. Because one, they don't know everything until Mao Mao told them. They probably don't know all of that. And two, that would instantly raise suspicions. It definitely seems like word got out. It definitely seems like there is suspicion. Someone believes that, here's the thing though, I don't think Gyokyo being pregnant is what's gotten out. I think Li Hua is pregnant, and I think that somebody's trying to sabotage her, which Li Hua has already tragically lost a child and had to grieve over their dead body. Please don't make Li Hua suffer again. Can we not have Li Hua suffer a second child die? Can we not have that? I was like, let her alone. I don't want Gyokyo to suffer, but I don't want Li Hua to either. No. Don't do that. We'll see, but it's the advance party to the special envoy of a foreign nation, and as such, it's larger scale and scheduled to stay longer. Okay, so there's a welcome banquet going on with the preparations, and they're saying a high-ranking officer in charge of reception is working on it. Okay, couple things. So this caravan that stayed a little bit longer than normal was in preparation for the envoy coming, so there's a good chance that the twins are still on their way and haven't arrived yet. But this high-ranking official that's preparing for it, it's not Lolan, because they would have mentioned it. We know that Suirei has posed as a male officer before. I'm gonna throw my tinfoil hat into the ring and say that Suirei might be involved in this preparation. I'm very curious. I want to see Suirei in this season. We'll see what happens with them, but all right. It's an important diplomatic partner, so keep up the good work. The only thing I don't want is for one of these twins to show up and be like, we're here to marry Jinshi, and not Jinshi the eunuch, but the brother of the emperor. I don't need that unnecessary drama. We don't need that. But if the twins show up and they're like, twins, Basil, we're here for the emperor, then who knows, right? Or if the twins show up and they're like, we want one of them to be a concubine to the emperor, then that could be a thing. So they say it's an important diplomatic partner, which makes me think that the twins aren't going to stay, but that they're just going to arrive, do diplomacy, and then leave. I don't know if it's part of matriarchy. I don't know. We don't exactly know what's going on. So we'll see. So we have a flower in this episode. That looks like a morning glory. No, morning glories are blue. It looks like, I don't know exactly what flower that is, but episode's called Caravan, and things are starting to get humid, so we do a wardrobe change. I do love that we get a little bit of insight into the humanitarian efforts of Gyokyo. Gyokyo, of all the concubines, seems the most politically inclined, with the exception of Lolan, but we'll talk about her in a little bit. I mean, Li Shu is not politically inclined. She's like 14. And Li Hua does not seem to care so much about the politics of the world. But Gyokyo, she seems very much like she's in tune with what her people want. She seems to have come here, not with an agenda necessarily, but with an understanding of the system. She gets it. She's a concubine. She was sold into this. But it is to eventually and inevitably help her people. So I like that Gyokyo has like a Princess Diana vibe to her from like Britain's royal family. She has a Princess Di vibe where she's like the woman of the people. She's sending her people back all the old clothing so that they can have it. I think that that's really sweet, and I like that. And she's also very kind and considerate. So I love Gyokyo. She's amazing. And I love like what she's doing here. So yeah, they talk about this caravan coming in and say there's a new lady in waiting. Now, the new lady in waiting, I'm very curious about this. Now that she's pregnant, we're going to need more help. And we see the caravan coming on, and then we see 3 other ladies in there. Okay. And that there's another reason, which is another concubine joined with more than 50 ladies in waiting and servant girls. Well, we know who that is. That's Lolan, and so thus Lady Gyokyo needs some more. I think that speaks a lot for Lady Gyokyo, in my opinion, that she is probably the most humble out of the 4. Like Li Shu's a kid, so she has ladies in waiting, but she's just kind of a figurehead there, right? And then Li Hua has 30 ladies in waiting, which is interesting, and Lolan has 50. Now, I think that is very important because my theory is that Shisui, Shisui's Lolan. That's who I think. I think Shisui is Lolan. She arrived around the same time as Lolan. She has the exact same hair, the exact same eyes. We've not seen Lolan speak or interact with anyone, so we don't know what she sounds like. And Lolan, she's theatrical. She wears all the theatrical clothing. She dresses up in different cultures. She's an actress. So of course she'd be an actress and get to play. I think that I don't know for sure yet. I can't decide if Lolan is going to be an enemy or if she's just kind of like, I feel like maybe she's going to be an enemy turned ally. I don't know. Or if it's all just an elaborate act and then Mao Mao's going to be like, well, shit. But the thing of it is, Mao Mao's kind of cozying up to her because they both seem to have a penchant for bugs and spiders and things. So that could be interesting. I just want it to be a whole Sherlock gallery. There's like all of these. There's Suirei, there's Shisui / Lolan, there's Mao Mao, and they're all like Sherlock Moriarty archetypes fighting each other with poisons. I just want that. But I really think that Shisui is Lolan. I think that Lolan is doing a Disney Aladdin Princess Jasmine moment where she's like, I just need to get out of here. Or she's Padme Amidala from Star Wars. She's like, I just need to get out of here. She wants to go and see what the rear palace is like without having an entourage. So her method is, I'm going to pose as a servant girl, go out and see what's happening around the rear palace, and then come back. And because she has 50 servants, it would be very easy for her to sneak out and, and have the servants distract anybody that comes over while she goes out and does her thing, is what I think. And if she's posing as one of the lowliest servants, like the girls washing the clothes, like Zhaolin, then that would it wouldn't seem as suspicious because nobody cares about the servant girls doing laundry. Zhaolin can walk around with Mao Mao and walk around the rear palace and nobody really suspects her because she's like at the bottom of the ladder. So I think that's what she's doing. And we've never seen her talk before. We've only seen her look like having resting bitch face. I think that Lolan is acting stoic, putting up the front, and I think she's, being maybe her. The question is she being herself when she's Shisui with Mao Mao and them, or is she being herself when she's Lolan? But she doesn't ever, or are they both personas? Are they both facades? I feel like Jinshi and the Emperor have been kind of off-put by her because she's an actress and they're like, this doesn't feel genuine. And I think that's the reality of it. Also, if you notice, in this episode, they don't really give us a very clear-cut image of Lolan so far because when they actually finally did in this episode, I was like, that looks exactly like Shisui. So, I could be wrong. I'm sure there's somebody in the comments that's like, she is not Lolan. What a crazy theory. I'm telling you, I've cracked that code. I'm on to something. But if Mao Mao has taught us anything, if Loman has taught us anything, we shouldn't completely rely upon conjecture. So those are just theories. I'm not saying anything definitive yet, but I mean, yeah. And so Lady Gyokyo only has 5 ladies in waiting. Yeah, so see when they show her there and they put her in black and white, that is Shisui. It's her. They look exactly the same. Her hair's just a little different. So, but I get the point where they're like, Lady Gyokyo, despite her being the people's princess, she does not have as many ladies in waiting. So it gives an impression of, well, why does he care so much about her? And is he playing favorites, right? And is she as grand as one would need to be the emperor's favorite? So I get them wanting to beef up how many maids that she has, but I get a little bit worried by incorporating more maids because the fewer people that are there, even though it's more work, the less chance there is of something sneaking in. Whereas something like Lolan's 50 maids or Li Hua's 30, stuff can sneak in unsuspectingly, right? Especially with what we find out in this episode that we want to avoid. So Lady Li Hua has 30, including servant girls. And the Garnet has double that. That feels wrong, doesn't it? So yeah, Ying Hua and them, I always forget those girls' names, right? But they're like, we made good progress, and they sort through all the clothing. So then they go to the caravan. I do like that there's like, I don't want to say it's Moroccan, but there is I like some cultural variance in this scene of the square as Mao Mao and Zhaolin go out, which is nice, and they get an allowance to go hang out. Okay, so then we get to Lady Li Hua and Shin. Now, correct me if I am wrong. Shin is the woman who gave her the lead poison, correct? Is that right? This is Shin. This is the same woman that gave her the face powder in season 1 that Mao Mao got onto, right? Am I wrong? And so then Li Hua is like, yeah, I want you to pass this out to everyone. Now, Li Hua is giving all the signals. She's shopping at the caravan. I'll have one of the ladies in waiting take care of it. Okay. So she hands it off to someone else and she says, thank you. Now, in that moment, I think Li Hua is pregnant. I think she's pregnant as well. My question is, why does Shin get so up about it? I don't understand. I thought Shin maybe learned her lesson from last time. Why is she really trying to be malicious? I don't understand. I don't know what the point of that close-up of her lips are. Or maybe she feels like she shouldn't be forgiven by Li Hua for what she's done. But if that's the case, why does she act weird in this scene? Because, yeah, she gets the letter from Lady Shin, a message from the clinic. I want to go back real quick. I want to go back and check something. Okay, so I didn't want to look up Lady Shin because I was afraid that I'd find some spoilers. So I was like, okay, who was the maid that Mao Mao confronted in season 1 about the powder? It was not Lady Shin. Okay, so in the reaction, I was like, oh, Lady Shin, she's the one that was confronted about the face powder. No, she was not. That was a brown-haired maid, so I was wrong on that one. So Lady Shin is apparently, she is the Hongmian for Li Hua, but she's not the one that was giving her the face powder. So she's someone different, right? She kind of has the blue hair that's very similar to Sui Ray, but she's not Sui Ray. She's her own person, right? These people possibly imitating the others. It's very confusing. But so she gets this letter from the clinic and then opens it up. The one girl looks really nervous to give it back to her, right? And then when she looks at it, her face gets dark. So that to me would be like she's pregnant. It didn't look like a face of she wasn't. I would see, in my opinion, for Li Hua, if she wasn't pregnant, I feel like it would be a more sad expression. So I don't get what Shin's deal is. I'm like, is Shin mad that Li Hua is pregnant? Is she jealous? Does she not want Li Hua to get pregnant? Does she want Li Hua to get sent away? From season 1, the one maid that was with Aduo that gave technically the Emperor's brother the honey, she didn't want Aduo to leave necessarily because she wanted to stay there. So could this be the opposite, where Shin wants Li Hua to get kicked out by not having a baby? Maybe she wants to go home. Maybe she has someone back home. Maybe she's the opposite of Hongmian and she has someone back home that she wants to marry or is married and can't leave as long as Li Hua's there having kids. So maybe she doesn't want Li Hua to be pregnant, and so she's not happy about this news that she possibly is. Maybe she's jealous. We don't know a lot about Lady Shin, but I do know now that she is not the one that poisoned her with the face powder. Although if she was the head handmaiden, did she know and let it slide? That's a very good question. We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, so I love the idea. I love all the different hairstyles and everything. And I love Xiaolon. I love that she gets to come and tour around the caravan with Mao Mao and they get to go to the festival. Now, here's the thing. This is what gets me. It says the rear palace really is a peculiar environment. And Mao Mao talks about how there's so many people, yet there's no shops and no doctors except for, now it says quacks. So I don't know if that means that there's only one doctor and it's just the quack doctor in the entire facility. In The Last Eunuch in China, which I read back for season 1, it talked about how there were multiple doctors in the rear palace. In the Forbidden Palace, there were multiple doctors. However, maybe they're all quacks and that's what she's meaning. But if there's only one doctor for that entire place, that seems like a little bit of an oversight. But then again, you threw the other doctor out, so... But they talk about how if disease broke out, it would spread uncontrollably. It seems that way, but not really, because sanitation is always kept at top notch. And they talk about the waterways. I literally just read, I talked about the book last week, but the Ghost Map, they talk about the water system in Europe. And they talk about how in London in the 1800s, the waterway was kind of set up like this. But the problem is that a lot of the waterway systems would get in the way or would overlap with the sewer systems, which is terrible. And sometimes it would create these cesspools where it would just be like fecal waste and drinking water would sometimes get mixed. And yeah, it would cause disease to run rampant. So it's like, So when they talk about the waterway being clogged and it being a problem, yeah, that is a big problem, because if the waterway gets contaminated, it's not good. My parents used to raise pigs, and we had them in a barn because it would get cold outside and they would be kind of contained in there. And they had vents and fans and stuff to keep this ventilation going. But in the wintertime, if one pig got sick in that barn, everything got sick. And you'd have to use the water supply. You'd put it was like vitamin C pouches, but you could put it in their water supply, and we had little tubes that would go out to all the different pens that were in there, and it would help give them like a boost of vitamin C and help them cure of their sickness. So yeah, the waterway is a big deal. So they talk about an underground waterway carrying out the waste, which is very similar to the one in Britain, and goes straight to the Great River without going through the moat. And it's water-working technology from the West, cleverly applied by the Empress. Interesting we get a note about the Empress. So the Empress is from the West. Is that also where Gyokyo is from? Is she also from the West as well, or was she from the East? I feel like that makes a difference, because is she from the same place as the Empress, or is she from the opposite? Anyway, but as long as proper hygiene is maintained, disease can be mostly prevented. And those still manage to contract severe illness are sent home. But, I mean, it's kind of like with any other disease. If it can spread quickly, you just have to know certain preventions. So, yeah, I really like, Xiaolin kind of takes Mao Mao out of her thoughts and says, I could get some time off on the last day, so maybe we should go to the caravan. And that's so sweet. Mao Mao's like, yes, let's do it. So they bring all of these clothing and items back, and Mao Mao makes the notice, and we see all the gemstones and everything else. The gems get brought back. Li Shu has her collection at the Diamond Pavilion, and at the Garnet Pavilion, everybody's bringing in stuff. But what's interesting is that Lolan just yawns, like she looks bored. I think she's Shisui, and I think she doesn't like being a concubine, and I think she doesn't like what she's doing, and she'd rather be a maid, but she has to put on airs because of her dad and because of everything else. That's what I think. That's what I think, but I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll see. But Mao Mao realizes that a lot of these Empire waist dresses are a little bit different than one would expect a woman would purchase. So here's the thing. I wondered if Mao Mao made the conclusion that, oh, if we only buy outfits for Gyokyo that look like they're maternity dresses, are people going to get the idea that she's pregnant? And that's what I think she was kind of hinting at, being like, maybe you should go back and buy some of the clothes you're currently wearing so that people don't think you're pregnant. And you would think, I know if you're not a woman and you're watching this video, you'd be like, well, who would think that? But I'll tell you right now, when I was in college, I had a couple sundresses, and I just liked the fit. I love an Empire waist. I like an Empire waist. I like how it flows. And I had some dresses they were like sundresses that I bought in college, and they were like Empire waist, and they all flowed out. And I actually had someone ask me one day, a stranger being like, oh, are you expecting? And I was like, no. So people will get ideas and they were like, oh, that looks like a maternity dress. And I'm like, well, it's not. And if it was, I didn't intend it to be so. So people can get those ideas. And so I do think that it matters that people don't think that that's all Gyokyo is buying as if she's going to be pregnant. Also, the fact that they were selling that type of style is curious. Like, were they tracking who bought that and how that went? But curiouser and curiouser. So Mao Mao's like, let's be safe. I also really like that when Gyokyo is contemplating this, she like strokes Jingli's hair like she's concerned for her. I think that's very relevant. Someone commented saying in the Discord, because I posted a picture of the Emperor and then Gyokyo and then Jingli, and I was like, man, Gyokyo's genetics are really strong. And someone said that the Emperor just mutes her colors. They're just muted. I was like, haha, which is really funny to me. Anyway, would we say that Jinshi has muted colors from Aduo? Maybe. So then she asks them to go, and Lady Gyokyo and Hongmian got the message to go get some of the regular clothes as well, just in case. Now, when Mao Mao takes Xiaolin on the third day, I can relate. My brother and I have been to several anime conventions, and if you go on the last day of a convention, if you're wanting deals, that's the time. That's always my go-to at an anime convention. If I go the first day, I love the trade room floor. I love seeing all the vendors. I love seeing all the artwork. But here's the thing. I'm very frugal with money. I don't like spending money. I like to save money. But I also don't want to be an impulse buyer. My dad is an impulse buyer. He sees something and he's like, gotta have it. And I'm like, no, I'm like a salesman's nightmare. So what I'll do is I'll go to a convention, look at all the shops, all the booths, and I'll take like an inventory of certain booths and things that I want. But what I do, and this is a solid practice, it has worked in the past, is that first day I'll go look at everything and my brother and I will be like, well, I think I might want that. But we'll wait till the last day before we fully go in on a purchase, because one of three things will happen. One, you will have decided by the third day that you really didn't want to spend your money on it. So you're like, nah, I actually decided that's not what I want. So it's fine. Two, the item may already have been purchased, which unless it was something you really desperately needed, you'll be like, oh, somebody got it that really wanted it. I didn't need to spend that money anyway. Or three, they might have it on sale because they're trying to sell it at the last minute before they pack up and go home, and they don't want to take it with them. And that's when you swoop in and go, 20% off, got it, or $10 off, all right, and then that's what you do. So it is a foolproof plan. You're either going to get the item you want, or you can't be mad because somebody else got it, or you'll have decided that you didn't need it. Solid plan, works every time. But I can relate to them going, I'm like Mau Mau, I'm all for the discounts, right? Also the little gauntlets and everything. I love the little hair bows. They're super cute. Xiaolin's expression is also super precious. And I love how Mau Mau kind of acknowledges that she's like a little sister to her, which is really sweet. I love it. I agree. Xiaolin is like the little sister Mau Mau never had, which is super cute. Mau Mau is also getting she's opening up with communication. She's letting people hug her. She's letting people put their cheek next to her. I'm like, girl, don't let Jinshi see this. He will be so mad. But of course, Mau Mau's like, I want some poisons, but there's none of those here. But we see all the spices and everything else that are for sale that we come to find out. I want to see, is there one particular stand? Yeah, selling all of those. And that's when she sees the jasmine tea. Yep. Also the camel scene. I have seen a camel in real life. I can attest, I don't think I'd look at them and wonder. Like Xiaolin, but you know what? Everybody has their animal that they kind of fawn over, so maybe camels or Xiaolins. We can't judge her. So yeah. And then who shows up to get the jasmine tea as well, but our sweet little Shisui. That she shows up with little hair buns as well. Yeah. I find it interesting because at the moment, if you think about it, Lolan would really have, I mean, Lolan's met Mau Mau before. That's the thing. Lolan has met Mau Mau at the educational seminar, right? And that's been the only time. So she would have met her before, but curious. Yeah. She's like, oh, she lives at the clinic now. But she's so sunny. I feel like it almost makes you question because Shisui is so like sweet and bubbly and Lolan is none of those things, but I maintain it's her. I think they're the same person. I think she's just a very good actress. Yeah. And for her to know Xiaolan and everything, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why Lolan would be spying as the persona of Shisui. If she wants to locate the inner workings of the rear palace, if she wants to see how things are done, if she wants to spy on people, if she wants to sneak around. I mean, she was sneaking around at the end of last episode while that cat showed up. So she was sneaking around then. I think she's sneaking around trying to get information, but who knows, right? Who knows? So yeah, she's like, my mom bought me this hair. Look, Mau Mau got me these hair ties. So Mau Mau's just like, okay, they know each other. She must be a court lady in the same laundry area. Curiouser and curiouser. So yeah, then they go back and we get moon cakes made by the quack doctor and they have their little jasmine tea and the moon cakes. Everything seems great. And then that's when Shisui asks about the caravans. Is it always like this, a huge festival every time? And I don't know. I can't tell if she's just genuinely being curious or trying to find out information and gather it. Could be both. We don't exactly know. But she supposedly has been here about 6 months, which is about the time that Lolan has been here as well. And of course, here, she's gathering information because, you know, she'd have to ask Jinshi about the foreign envoy. But here, she doesn't have to ask Jinshi. She can just find out from them. And they'll be like, oh, a special envoy is coming from a foreign land soon. And this is just the preamble to that. Someone important. And I like that Mau Mau looks over him and being like, are you allowed to talk about that? Like, because he might not be. She'd been like, are we supposed to like converse about this? You know? But if Shisui thinks that she can come here and find information, and that's when she says, by the way, there's a weird smell on the north side these days. Do you know about it? This is my thing. I'm curious about Shisui, because if she is Lolan, and Lolan was pointing out about the weird smell on the north side, which is by where Lihua is Lolan trying to out things? Or is Lolan trying to be genuinely helpful? I'm going to call Shisui Lolan, because I think they're the same person. But is she is she testing Mau Mau the same way that Suirei was testing Mau Mau? Can I ship Shisui and Suirei in a relationship? Is that a crack pairing? Can I go ahead and do it? The reason why Lolan doesn't want to be with the Emperor is because she's not into men. Who knows? But I still maintain that they're the same person. I think Lolan and Shisui are the same person. I definitely think they are. But I think it's interesting she tells Mao Mao about that. And then the quack doctor and Xiaolon don't really, know much about the smell. They say there's a bit of a mess. Maybe it's a waterway that's clogged. And Mao Mao's like, well, if the waterway gets clogged, the smell could reach the ground level, but that's weird that it's on the north side. And so that's when Xiaolon's like, do you work on the north side? And she says, oh, well, there's some good shrubs there. So here's my alibi. That's what she basically said. She's like, oh, me? Why am I outside of my jurisdiction? Well, I'm drawing grasshoppers. Don't you know? She is a good artist, though. Those are some good drawings that she conveniently whips out of her shirt as if, to say, were you expecting this? She's like, there's a lot of bugs, so it's great that I can draw so many. Sure, Jan. Okay, that's your alibi. And then Mao Mao's like, well, you can use insects for medicine, so the eggs of a praying mantis can make an aphrodisiac. I ain't eating no praying mantis eggs. Sorry, you leave that to Jinshi. And then, what else did you say? The earthworms can be fever reducers? So the fruit garden on the south side is well kept, so there aren't many out there. Now, to me, in that moment when she said that, I was like, oh, so you've been to the north side to see the bugs, but you've also been to the south side to look for fruit. Where else you been on campus, girl? If she's supposed to do so many jobs, why? She's traveling around everywhere on the rear pavilion. I'm just saying, it's all, something's rotten in the state of Denmark. But the ruins on the north side are really nice, and they're huge spiders. And Mao Mao's like, spiders? Yes. Honestly, Suirei was really cold in the last season. Suirei was just like very cryptic and like sneaking into the shadows. I am not opposed to Mao Mao and Shisui becoming friends. But I am concerned if that's going to lead to Mao Mao finding out that Shisui is Lolan and what that will do. So I don't know if they're going to go the route of Lolan being a villain like Suirei, or if they're going to go the route of her being misunderstood and her dad's the more villainous character. I don't know what they're going to do then. But she is right in saying spider silk has blood staunching properties. Also, when I was in college and was on a competitive speech team, I did a speech about spider silk and how it was used to make Kevlar vests, like bulletproof vests. Fun times. Spider silk is actually amazing. And if you don't know, the whole speech was about, and this was back in the early 2000s, they've actually elevated the genetics a lot since then, but they were basically kind of using CRISPR, which is like a genetic modifier, and they were inserting a gene into dairy goats, and it would make the dairy goat milk. It didn't do anything to the goats, but it created a silk gene in goat milk to where they could siphon out the goat milk and there would be spider silk come out of it. Yeah. Which is insane, right? But they would do that because you can't have a whole farm of spiders. You know how long and how many spiders you have to get like a bulletproof vest worth of spider silk? No, this was actually milk that they could like, instead of curdling cottage cheese out of it, they could get spider silk from it and they'd make bulletproof vests with it. And I think they still do it today. I think there are still like modified goats or sheep or even cattle they milk to get spider silk. It's crazy. It's a wild time. But yeah, and so then Shishui's like, you want to go check it out? And she's like, yes, I want to go check it out. And she's like, look at this one. It's super cute. And what'd she say? It's delicious too. I'm sure you'll like it. I am all for Shisui turning out to be a secret nerd. I want her to be a secret nerd that is forced to be a concubine. And she's like, forget this. And she wants to go off and do nerdy things. And Mao Mao is nerd with her. I want that for them. I want that so much. But we'll see where that goes. So anyway, then we have somebody coughing. Somebody's coughing. There are lines of sticks or something on a mat. Somebody's walking by. And then there is a basket. Someone puts down the candle. It looks like they have a blue. I'm like, are they from Lihua? And then there's all of these scented oils, which is the rose and everything that they purchased, which are all the bad scents. Somebody's trying to sabotage. And I think it's Shin. I think Shin is trying to sabotage to get Li Hua to miscarry for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's my guess. And I don't think anybody knows. I think that no one knows that Gyokyo is pregnant, but they suspect Li Hua is, and they're trying to stop it. I'm like, please don't let Li Hua lose this baby if she is pregnant. I don't want that. No. So then scented oils have become all the rage in the rear palace, but that's when Mao Mao notices the rose smell and realizes that, that's not good for pregnancy, and then realizes that all of the different clothes have all these scents. And honestly, it's very nefarious, because if the scented oils have become popular, then that means it's going to be easier to hide the rose scents, because there's all these, they talked about all these smells being released at once. And it's like, yeah, if you've ever been in like a department store where someone's like testing out all the perfumes at once, eventually your nose gets like just synesthesia and it can't detect different smells at that point. And so luckily, Mao Mao, who's been working with scented oils, just so happens to be able to identify some of the different ones and realizes that, yeah, this might be a problem. So then she goes to the Jade Pavilion. I like that she first goes there because she's like, they have all the fads. Also, people have tried to kill her baby before. So of course she would go there. And then as she's smelling everyone, that's when she runs into Shin. Who kicks her out. And then Jinshi's like, why are you sniffing people? The head lady in waiting wrote an official complaint. That seems suspicious in itself, her writing a complaint. I mean, all she was doing was sniffing outfits, but that seems like a complaint. That seems a little bit much, right? And I like that Jinshi, she's like, I'm not a pervert, Jinshi. Don't get on to me. I like that Gokyo was like, I believe her. She's fine. Jinshi, don't get on to her. It's like, I got too worked up and acted without thinking. I'm sorry I sniffed people. And Jinshi's like, don't be a pervert. I'll get consent before sniffing anyone. And he's like, you shouldn't sniff people. Oh, it's funny. And then Jinshi starts to get out of hand, but Gyokyo's like, oh my, like, Jinshi, you're getting ahead of yourself. And she's like, okay, I've apologized enough. Now there are a bunch of scents that are a problematic thing. So she has him read off a list of things that have been purchased. And he says, okay, rose, benzoin, anything named benzoin is like, parasol tree, frankincense, cinnamon. Yeah, I do remember someone telling me that cinnamon is not good for pregnant people. I distinctly remember that. Yeah. And she says there are names of scents and oils that I smelled in the court ladies today. And they're all bad for pregnancies. They can have adverse effects. And then immediately everybody's like, oh shit. So the thing is, though, they all believe that Gyokyo's the one being targeted when that might not be the case at all. But there's all these spices and teas. So she brought these here being like, jasmine has the effect of constricting the uterus. And mustard is used as an ingredient in abortion medicines for courtesans. And then we have, and so, yeah, she has a whole big old pouch of different things, saying that in small amounts, they're not a problem, but because it's, the festivity and the exoticness of it, everybody's gotten everything. And honestly, Mao Mao gets mad at herself, but I'm like, girl, you should, like, she did pass by all those spices, but she was hanging out with Xiaolan and having a good time. But I'm like, don't feel bad. I mean, how are you supposed to know that people in a caravan could possibly be poisoning someone? And the thing about it is, that's the scary part. It may be that nobody knows that any of them are pregnant and that they brought all of this stuff just with the expectation that it might be. And we're just going to casually walk in, bring in all of this stuff that could cause, miscarriages or adverse effects in pregnancies, and be on our way and be like, oh, we didn't know anybody was pregnant. It's crazy. It's like biological warfare, but without even, without even really realizing it. So Mao Mao wants to know who the merchants were. And Jinshi's like, I could track them down, but I don't know if we can track down all of it, but I'll try. He's like, we did inspect them all. But I mean, the thing about it is they're all natural things. Like, you wouldn't think of all these things being poisonous because they're not by themselves in tiny quantities, but all of them at once could cause a problem. Which is interesting. Yeah. So she's like, isn't this is like when Ling Li was sick, the toxic makeup powder. We're all going back to the beginning of season 1, baby. Loop it back around. None of them are toxic like the lead, though. That's what makes it so dangerous. And so they're like, we're going to check the scented oils and the teas and spices in the pavilion. And so then Mao Mao thinks, is this something that could be the work of Sui Rei? The court lady who came back from near death to escape is still missing. Uh-huh. I don't know if it's Sui Rei. Honestly, I think it's Shin. Do I think that Shin orchestrated the caravan bringing in all of these items? No. Could Shin have but maybe Shin got the expertise of Moriarty to help her find said items. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. The attempted assassination. I like that Mao Mao's like, in this palace, I'm realizing being a part of the royal family and being the concubines of the emperor, nobody is safe. And there's lots of people attempting others' lives. But Mao Mao's also like, how much of this is me just thinking that it's an issue rather than having full-on proof? It's like, if I wasn't working directly for a concubine, I wouldn't have been paid enough to gain interest in the caravan. Right? So, I mean, it kind of works out. And she's like, and if the scented oils weren't so popular, I wouldn't have noticed. To me, that I talked about this last week with the ghost map. It kind of just lined up. Sometimes time just lines up in the right sequence for things to happen. Because just like in the ghost map, where the one Whitehead, who was the clergyman, he was like, if I didn't know the people as well as I did, if I wasn't in the right place at the right time, if I hadn't seen the pump and made that connection, then things wouldn't have fell into place as it were. And if I hadn't used my conjecture in this moment to connect with the actual evidence, then the case wouldn't have been solved. So Mao Mao's kind of doing the same thing here, being like, okay, it's not wrong for me to have been these places at the right time. Now I just need to back it up with some solid evidence. Maybe this is the only time so much of it was brought in. Maybe since they were bringing more for this envoy, it's just a coincidence. But yeah, she's like, I can't even tell that much. So then Jinshi shows up. Jinshi of all people. And it's so interesting. He's by himself without Gaoshun. And they have an actual sit-down conversation without ribbing each other, which is so fascinating. It's just the tiniest little conversation, but it's so interesting. And she's like, well, it's not strong enough in such a small amount of tea, so it's fine to have the jasmine tea here. And she's like, and I'm not pregnant, so, He's like, that's true. And it's a kid. But she does say, you shouldn't be here. And Jinshi's like, well, I'm the prince's son, so I can be here as much as I want. And then he's like, Gaoshun is off sending and delivering some messages. So he asks for the same tea that she has. He's like, I want the same one as that. And she's like, well, that's the last one. And she's like, I could steep it again, but it'll be watery. And he's like, fine. Jinshi, and I love Mao. I was just kind of like, she's like, can't you just have regular tea and not drink the same that I drink? You've probably been like, I'll drink out of the same cup as you. We can have an indirect kiss if you want right now. And she's like, it's not fine. I love that she wants to serve him some decent tea. And she's like, you don't understand. And it's like, what other effects does this tea have? And she's like, well, it can calm the mind. What's funny is she says it improves sleep, but it also helps wake people up, which seems like it's a contradiction. But I do have some headache medicine that I use if I get an extreme migraine. It's a prescription. And if I get an extreme migraine, I have not used it in a long time, knock on wood. But if I have to use it, it's essentially like a horse tranquilizer. It essentially like affects your nervous system, but it like stops a migraine. But the funny thing is it has caffeine in it, but it also will cause drowsiness. So you're like, you would think the caffeine would counteract the drowsiness, but that's just not how it works. It's funny how drugs work sometimes. But yeah, she says it helps wake people up, and it's not good for pregnancies, but if you're about to have a baby, it can actually help help giving birth as it helps with delivery. Just depends on the amounts you use and when you use it. So Jinshi says, well, it has more good effects than bad. And she's like, yes, that's why it's hard to remember the bad effects. Because when something does something good, you have to sometimes forget what the side effects are. Mm-hmm. And then as she's pouring the tea, she makes him the white tea, which, you know, she's like, there you go. And he's like, well, I wanted the tea that was watery. And she's like, and so she's like, oh, come to think of it, I've heard it has another effect. She tries to make a joke here and says that it actually causes decreased fertility in men. And Jinshi is like, which he's supposed to be playing a eunuch. So, you know. And she's like, oh, well, you know, never mind. That joke might have been a little too spicy. Sorry, I didn't mean to. And she freaks out. She's like, oh, he didn't take the joke well. And she starts to panic about it. And she's like, maybe I'll go get a snack. But then he looks over at the tea and he drinks it. He takes it anyway. To me, that means that Jinshi doesn't care. Jinshi doesn't want to have kids. He doesn't want to have heirs because he doesn't want that pressure. So, and I kind of want that for Jinshi. I want him to not have to have kids. We talked about it in the comments, and Anime Annie was talking about like Scully and Mulder from X-Files and all that. But I kind of like the idea of Jinshi's like, to me, I think the idea of bloodlines is a shackle for Jinshi. The idea of children is his lineage. And for him, it's like, it's a prison. So if he doesn't have to worry about that, if he's like, oh, I can't have kids. Oh no, I guess I can't be the emperor because I don't have an heir and I can't have one. Then all the better for him. So the fact that he drank the entire thing of tea is... He's like, well, I don't like this much. I'm leaving. And poor Mao Mao, he drank the whole thing and didn't drink the white tea. I feel bad for Mao Mao because she didn't get to apologize to him, right? Which is sad. And he just leaves, which is very rare for Jinshi, right? For Jinshi to get up and leave without saying goodbye to her and for being kind of irritated, that's a new thing for Jinshi. I'm not used to that, right? I'm used to them kind of being on eggshells around each other, but they're not. Interesting. And then he says concubine Jin of middle rank has passed away. So she wasn't one of the top 4 or in the rear palace, but she was kind of in the middle rank. And he's like, Jin, really? And then Gao Shun leans in, and he's like, it's poison. And says, could it be? Could it be what we were thinking of? I don't know why he looked up at the moon when he said that. So then as the tea is getting poured, I'm assuming, is that not Hongmian looking at the candle? Who be that? Why is that moment where, because isn't that Hongmian? Yeah, it's Hongmian looking there. I would like to think that Hongmian isn't doing anything suspicious. I would like to think Hongmian's not doing anything suspicious around Gyokyo. But her looking at the candle there, I'm curious. I don't understand what is going on in that moment and why she looks so suspicious there. I don't know. Show, are you trying to intentionally throw me off? Are you trying to make me weirded out? Is that what you're doing? What are we doing? Anyway, I don't trust Lady Shin. I don't know what her beef is against Li Hua, but I don't like it. I don't trust her. I fully think that Shisui is Lolan. 100%. I don't know why they did that weird close-up of Hongmian, unless it was just to throw us off and make us, like, have a fake-out moment. And I'm really sad that Jinshi just left Mao Mao without her getting to apologize. So maybe Mao Mao probably won't be affected by it. She'll just be like, but maybe she'll try to make it up for Jinshi later. I don't know. Although, I say that, I am kind of glad for that scene because Jinshi and Mao Mao are always kind of on eggshells around each other. And I like the idea that they kind of are becoming more friends with one another and not being so like sensitive around each other's feelings that they're like, oh, I don't, are you okay? Like they're, becoming more friendly around each other. I kind of like that. That's good. That's a good, healthy relationship. So we'll just have to wait and see. But in any case, I'm super excited to hear your thoughts down below. I know it's going to be very difficult for all of you that have read the light novel and the manga, but Please, no spoilers, hints, or clues, but I'm excited. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back very soon with more of the Apothecary Diaries. Bye.